It is an amazing day to just show up. Hi, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, and changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor and Humanness, where we talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, all the messiness in between, long before it arrives, and diffuse the fear so we can live fully now. Most of the time, we have been in the deep trenches of grief. We've had to say goodbye to loved ones in their dying process as they took their last breath, and we realized how ill-prepared we were. We did not have a solid foundation of coping skills and strategies. We didn't have a soft landing for ourselves, a belief about life and death. And now we realize that we want to do it differently so that we can just show up for ourselves, we can just show up for each other without suffering excessively. Grief is a part of this journey, and we are all temporary. That is a hard fact for many of us to accept. And yet, if we can become proactive, if we can accept that life is unpredictable, change is the only constant, and prepare for anything, we can navigate this and allow grief, joy, gratitude, and know that no matter what life presents to us, we can create a world, a life worth living. And so how we can do this is learning from each other, supporting one another, and sharing our stories. And that is what I have devoted my life to after 27 years of nursing, after as a parent, as a human being who has suffered excessively, and I want to do it differently. So let's get started. As always, I want to start with a fun fact because I aspire to share my message with heart, humor, and humanness because it's already serious enough. And I don't know how fun this is for us, but I will share that it is April 6th, 2023. And for most of us, that is a time of being excited about spring. You know, if you live in California, it kind of feels like spring all the time. A little jealous. My sister lives there. Anyway, for those who live in Canada or the northern states or somewhere where you have winter, spring is something to look so forward to, and the blooms are starting. And certainly we tell ourselves that winter's going to be over in March. And you know, here's the thing. Mother Nature has a bit of a temper, and she's a bit of a trickster. And so it is not even the 1st of April, but it is the 6th. And yesterday we had the craziest storm. It was raining so hard you couldn't see, and hailing and snowing, and all the trees looked like the movie Frozen. Everything just had ice. There were broken branches, power lines down, people with no power, and flooding. There was so much rain, there were flooding. We were helping our neighbor who had a flooded basement. We have water in our basement. My husband Jody doesn't know that yet. Anyways, I have to say, and then we woke up today and sunshine, birds are singing, it's warm out. And there's that, wow, that accept that life is unpredictable, prepare for anything, and that big reminder that whatever we are going through is temporary. Yesterday, oh my goodness, if the weather continued like that long term, wow, we'd be in really, really big trouble. And yet here it is the next day, and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping. And Mother Nature, if you could, you know, just give us a pass for no more storms like that, I'd appreciate it. But there you go. There's my fun fact for the day. So today I want to just chat about, again, I've been reviewing and reflecting on my previous episodes, and I talked about just showing up. I think it was December 2021, just showing up for others in challenging times. And what do we do when we're all challenged, right? When we are all struggling, and I have felt that in my life. I'm feeling it now. There many moving pieces of our puzzle. There is grief, there is joy, there are transitions, challenges, misunderstandings, miscommunication. And so as I speak, I am speaking to myself because I am continuously learning, unlearning, and evolving, reaching out to those who can support me and that I can learn from. And so when we want to just show up for others and we are also struggling, it's that, what can I do? And so one of the things that I do is as I have conversations with supportive people, I reach out and I say, I am struggling. Those I love, I care about are struggling around me. What can I do to just show up for myself at this time and just show up for them? And one of the mentors from, she doesn't know she's my mentor yet, but I aspire to meet her one day. Let me put that out to the universe and share a stage with her, Brene Brown. And Brene Brown is just an incredible human. Talk about allowing her flawed, imperfect, authentic self. She is the real deal. And so when I'm struggling, I watch Brene's Netflix special. I go to her website. I remind myself what sympathy, empathy, and compassion mean, and boundaries. So let me just share a little bit about what I've learned from Brene and others. And, first of all, we have to understand and define, or acknowledge and allow our own feelings, right? So there's grief, which is felt in our mental, physical, and emotional being, and it's internal. And we have to find ways, as my friend Maria Kleefkoff says, to convert that grief to mourning, to express it. And so as we want to just show up for ourselves first, that's the greatest thing we can do, and also teach others by example, right? We're all grieving, we're struggling, this is hard. Acknowledge and allow these hard feelings, and figure out how you can best support yourself first. Just show up for yourself first before you can show up for others. So that's the very first thing, is that converting that grief to mourning and finding healthy ways to release that, and definitely with movements such as yoga, tai chi, music, going outside. For me, I've spent a lot of time in nature. Even in the storm, I was out there chopping wood or tree branches that had fallen, and just as I was doing it, being very intentional about saying, having a lot of hard feelings right now, and I want to release them, release. And so I do that for myself, and I say it out loud, speak it, what I am struggling about, what my issues, whatever's challenging me, and without minimizing that, I also am very excessively intentional about finding things to be grateful for at the same time, to be joyful, allowing the grief and the joy. So again, back to this storm, my goodness, so many things happen. And we had power because we have a Generac. I was so grateful for that. In the other struggles in my life, thank goodness, I'm so grateful for my own tools. What I've devoted my life to, developing coping skills and strategies, and allowing the grief and allowing the joy. I know who I can turn to. I know who I can turn to. So I'm not going to, for those who are struggling, we'll have conversations, but they are not going to be the people that I say, can you please help me through this? We're going to be helping each other by acknowledging and allowing our feelings and working through this together. But I'm going to also reach out to my wonderful support system, who can be objective, and they're outside of what is happening. And I am so grateful for these humans in my life, and also in between, having conversations with in real time with real people that we know each other, again, reaching out or listening to inspirational, motivational, positive, something that's going to help me through, such as Brene Brown's website and learning. And it's funny because we say, oh yes, I already know that stuff, but here's the thing, and I know this about myself. When I'm grieving or struggling, it's like, the brain just, it's like two wires are no longer connecting, that you kind of had it all together, but when you become a little unglued, it's hard to think. And so I know that I need to feed my heart and soul with these things, and I need to remember to just show up for myself first. And one of the greatest lessons from Brene was, when we want to be compassionate, which is very different from being sympathetic, and again, I'll get back to that, but the very first thing we need to define for ourselves is our boundaries. Our boundaries. And it's very simple. We complicate everything, right? Your boundaries, very simple. In this moment, in this situation, in this time frame, right here and now, what is okay for me and what is not? What can I do right now and what is not okay for me to do right now? And that was just to simplify it, just like that. Just simplify it. What's okay for me right now? Because here's the thing. Our feelings change, our resistance changes, what we're able to give changes. It's fluid. It doesn't mean like, that's it, I cannot speak to that person anymore ever again in my life, and that's set in stone. All we know is right now. Right now, I know what I can and cannot do, and I'm not able to speak to this person or do this for this other person right here, right now. And I know that they need things, and I hope that they have their supportive people, their village, and perhaps I can even suggest some things, some mentors, maybe in person or again online, just like Dr. Gabor, as he said, he pronounces it, Gabor Mate, who is an incredible mentor for the world in helping us to become whole again after trauma, to understand people who have been through trauma, to understand ourselves. And again, my golden nugget from, there's many, from Gabor, one of them is that we can choose. We always want to do more, and that's where burnout and resentment and not truly being helpful come in. Because if we do not have those healthy boundaries and we feel depleted and we feel like, oh, I have to go help because they need help, and truly you do not feel capable, you are not being helpful. So respect your boundaries, and as Gabor says, choose guilt over resentment. Choose guilt over resentment. I feel guilty that I'm not helping them more. Oh, perfect. Celebrate that, because that means you're honoring your boundaries. It is a hard thing to do. It is a challenging thing to do. And yet, if we truly understand that without those healthy boundaries, we are not able to just show up for others in a positive way, to create a positive impact, to be helpful. So when we are not able, we are not able. We do not have to make a million excuses. You're just checking in. Sometimes we don't even know why. Sometimes we don't even understand why we can't just show up. It's just like, I don't know, I just can't right now. Give yourself a break because compassion starts with self-compassion. So back to, I rambled on because I was talking about how Brene defined sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And again, really helped me to create that framework. Is sympathy is when you feel sorry for someone. Sympathy, you feel sorry for them. So that creates that disconnect, right? Oh, you poor thing. And that is not serving anyone. That is not helpful to that person and is not helpful to you, because what we instead, and I invite you to see that person as, first of all, this is their journey and they have every tool within themselves and they are capable. They are capable of navigating this. You've got this. To believe in them instead of that feel sorry for, right? To feel sorry for someone is to say, oh gosh, you can't handle this, you poor thing. Ashton Kutcher, I saw a quick video, interesting, as I was, I don't know, whatever, I popped up somewhere, and he was talking about his brother, who, I believe they're twins. Anyways, he felt his brother had cerebral palsy, and Ashton Kutcher, famous and gorgeous and all of these things, and he spent a lot of time feeling sorry for his brother. And his brother said, that is not helpful to me, actually. That is not helpful to me. And it was just a very big aha moment for him, and also a relief. And when we believe that someone is the very best version of themselves, and we believe that they can navigate through despite this challenge, which, P.S., let's remind ourselves that no matter what we are going through, it is temporary. Those hard feelings, this challenging situation, whatever it may be, will not last forever, thank goodness. If we want to be able to just show up for ourselves and each other in challenging times, we must have those boundaries, choose guilt over resentment, and understand that sympathy, feeling sorry for, is not helping. It is not helpful. When you have empathy, you're willing to feel with that person. Empathy, you are feeling with. And so you're willing to kind of, you don't need to have gone through the same situation, but that same emotion, you're connecting to the emotion that they are feeling, that you have felt sometime in your life. And so it doesn't mean you have to take on that pain as your own. And you see, all of this takes practice. All of this takes learning, right? Because we're afraid. That's why so many people put the armor up. We're afraid to feel compassion fatigue or burnout because we're going to give too much. Well, there's no giving too much when you have your boundaries, and you know that empathy is feeling with. Doesn't mean you're taking on the pain, but you're able to sit there in the mud with them. And then compassion, Brene said, and I love this, is empathy in action. So you are able to help in any way you can. You're willing to feel with, and what can I do? And you're willing to take action. And there is no compassion without boundaries. You have to have those boundaries, or you will not be able to help just show up, whatever it may be, especially when you are struggling. Those boundaries, that the self-care, the rituals of self-care, excessive self-care, acknowledging and allowing your feelings, allowing gratitude and joy, looking for, creating it, being intentional. And then no matter what we're all going through, sometimes we just need to sit in the mud together and say, oh, this is hard. I am struggling. I'm going to have a good cry. I'm going to have whatever it may be. And just allow it. Easier said than done? Of course. All of this stuff is. And here's the thing. If we continue to learn if we continue to practice, we begin to understand. We begin to understand that we will get through this. It is not our job to judge someone else's journey, to fix it. Brene also says, clear is kind. Please be clear about your own boundaries. And the other thing that is kind, that understanding and accepting that we do not know that other person's story, their full story. We see a part of their story and we think that's their whole story. We think we understand what they're motivated by, what they are avoiding, what they are not doing is because of this, this, and this. And here's the thing. We do not know someone else's whole story, do we? Why this person seems to be struggling more, why this person seems to be struggling less in this situation that we're all challenged by. And clear is kind. And again, back to Brene and her everyone should watch her Netflix special. She talked about when there are assumptions, right? Is when everyone's struggling and emotions are high, right? And often we're in the red zone. And to me, the red zone is just like when you're not going to hear logic. You're just all emotion, and all you can see is the story that you've created. And so Brene talks about when you are talking with others and maybe you're struggling, understand that your emotions are high, theirs are, we're all struggling, and clear is kind. If you can step back and go back to that, acknowledging and allowing your grief, expressing it, converting it to mourning, get that out. Understand your own emotion, allow joy, allow gratitude, and understand that it is not our job to judge, to fix, to compare anyone else. And when you find yourself creating stories about the other people or whoever else is in this situation, start with saying the story instead of you're doing this and you're doing that and I know why you're doing this, and that just creates a dynamic of everyone trying to defend themselves, and right, it just spirals and creates more chaos. If we can step back and say the story that I'm telling myself is that you are, or I need you and you are not there. I need you in this situation and you are just avoiding me and I am really hurt. That is the story I am telling myself. And sometimes, and I've been there and I've done it. We've all done this. We've assumed I know why they're doing this, and oh, they're so selfish. We've all done it. We're human. We're flawed. It's what we do. Our brain wants to hear stories, you see. And so when we don't know, when there's unclear communication with someone and we haven't been willing or able to hear their truth, because their truth is their truth. So when we can step back and say that, and imagine, because I've heard this so many times, as I've shared in my TEDx talk and everywhere, when people don't know what to do and they don't know what to say, they avoid because they're afraid to do or say the wrong thing. They are afraid to trigger their own emotions. They do not have their own coping skills and strategies. They're afraid. And so most often when you are in that struggle and many people are challenged and people are making up their own stories about what that other person is going through, or how you are the victim. Sorry, that's the elephant in the room, that word victim, and you have been wronged. If we can step back and say the story that I'm telling myself, and then create a safe space to hear that other person, and you just never know what can come of that. Because sometimes, and most of the times, and many times I have heard, this other person is saying, I have been so stressed in this situation, or I avoided, and then I felt worse, and then I felt shame, and I, I know I was blamed, and they spiral down into this dark hole of self-loathing and feeling like they are not good enough, and they spiral down, and oh my goodness, I made this worse. I can't just show up now. I should have, I could have, I didn't. And when anyone is in that situation, and I have been in there, just feeling like a failure, feeling like I made things worse, feeling like I didn't just show up for others, and it is the worst feeling in the world. We can all pause again when we are all struggling and start with that self-compassion and get to the place with our healthy boundaries of having compassion for others, or allowing space for stories, hearing their story, not judging how they are acting, comparing, etc., and supporting ourselves with others who are able to just show up. Right? Like there's so many times like, well, you should be there for me. You should, well, if they are not able, not willing, whatever it may be, let's get support. Create our village. Learn, unlearn, and evolve. And bring more compassion to the world, especially when we are struggling. Let's start with that self-compassion, intentional self-care, acknowledging and allowing our feelings. And we will get through it. Whatever we are going through is temporary. And no matter what, if we can bring in heart, human, and humanness, we will get through it. I promise. And there will be joy on the other side. Whew, that was a heavy one, wasn't it? I know. And if you are struggling, I invite you to reach out to me, reach out to a friend, reach out to someone. And again, loveyourlifetodeath.com. Watch my TED Talk. It is helpful. There are resources there. There are many shows, again, on Win-Win Women that can help you navigate through this journey we call life. No matter what you are going through, you do not have to do this alone. And no matter where you go, I invite you to bring love, gratitude, and, as I said, heart, humor, and humanness along the way. And remember, this is temporary, no matter what. So thank you for joining me. Again, I know this was a hard conversation. I love you with all my heart. Know that the more we have these conversations, the better you will be able to navigate next time. And also, no matter what, my call to action, if you want to be able to just show up for yourself and others, and especially in times of struggle, when you can create the time, plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thank you. And remember, you are not alone. Bye for now.